So, welcome to Wine How to Sell Wine Travel. My name's Allan Wright. I have got 24 years of experience in the travel industry, running a small company called Zephyr United. We are based in Montana, but we are a virtual company, and we've got three different divisions. Our first division is called Zephyr Adventures, and we've been running that for 24 years. That runs active tours around the world, hiking, biking, kayaking, things like that. In addition, we do run active wine and beer tours, which is sort of how we got into the wine industry. We also have a company called Travel Montana, which offers inbound tours to our home state, mostly small and private. And we will actually be doing a webinar on how to sell and why to sell Montana and Yellowstone travel, and we will send you that information. That's coming out in early April. And then our third small brand is called Taste Vacations, and that runs food, wine, and craft beer tours around the world. And it's really Taste Vacations, which is the impetus for putting on this webinar to hopefully provide all of you some interesting information. We also have a second division that does conferences, 2 in the wine industry, 2 in the beer industry, and 1 in the food industry. And it's those conferences that have really given us a lot of industry insight, more than we would have had just from being a tour operator. And in fact, it's where I met Eric. We know that the virus is still bad out there, and although we've seen good results recently, a drop in infections, the travel is still uncertain. At the same time, we all are wanting to get back to normal, and preparing for getting back to normal is part of our role as, in your case, travel advisors, in my case, as a tour operator. So we think this is actually a good time to do this. Here's why we think this webinar is or should be important to you. Number 1, wine travel is extremely popular. Number 2, it's not easy for travelers or for agents to arrange wine travel on your own, especially outside the United States. And if you do organize it on its own, on your own, or travelers on their own, it's hard to organize events that are unique and special. Number 3, selling wine travel can be very profitable for agents, and that's especially true when you're selling packaged wine tours where the price is much higher than the price of the individual components combined. So, in summary, wine travel is very popular. It's hard to organize, and it can be very profitable for agents. In this webinar, we're going to take 30 to 40 minutes and go over really information that we think will be useful to you. We'll start out with information on who is the wine traveler. Eric will do that. And then I'll talk about the logistics of wine vacations. We'll then go into domestic and international locations that are popular for wine tourism right now. And we'll talk a little bit about our own trips, including our wine and music retreats, which are very unique and we think is something that might appeal to agents and your clients. And then then we'll have time at the end for questions. And so now I'd like to introduce Eric. Eric is a wine industry veteran who I know from him having spoken at our wine conferences. He's the author of When Great Wine Is Not Enough, a wine sales and marketing guide for wineries, negociants, and wine brand owners, which means he sort of wrote the book on wine marketing. He is the Winery Sales and Marketing Officer of the Year from 2018 in the North Bay Business Journal, which covers Napa and Sonoma. He's got 17 years of experience in this industry. He's managed or sold over 20 million cases, and he's developed over 500 plus wine brands. So Eric is a true wine industry expert, and we thought it would be a perfect combination to bring him in and have him participate. So Eric, I'm going to pass it over to you to talk about who is the wine traveler.
Great. Thank you. What a great introduction. I think my mother would love that. So it's good to see everybody from all over the world. Let me turn down my volume here a little bit. Especially from some incredible wine regions that we're going to talk about here in a little while, like Willamette Valley. Love to see all these people coming in from all over the world as well as all over the country. I'm very happy to talk to you about a few things today that, I read a lot of research on a lot of these big wineries that I've worked for, which were companies like Kendall Jackson was my brand for quite some time. Mum Napa, if any of you have been to Rutherford, Napa Valley, beautiful Napa Valley. And Buena Vista and Gary Farrell. But the interesting thing about a few of these wineries is that I had the visitor centers. And with Mum Napa in particular, was the 6th most visited winery in Napa Valley. So we'd get a couple 100,000 people a year. I had a team close to 80 people that would just manage the guests. And so I've read a lot of data on who the wine consumer is, but I could tell you firsthand, my office sat next to a data stream of people that came in and out of our doors. And another brand that I managed was Vineyard 29. I know there's some lovers out there of that. And that's $300 a bottle at $150 per person. So I've run the gamut of all these different types of business centers, visitor centers. And I could definitely tell you what the consumer looks like. So if we go to the first slide, Beth, and then, you could definitely put them in a pretty nice, tightly wound category here. Go ahead to the next one, please. So first and foremost, this doesn't hold true for all, but the age group largely is 50 to 65. Now, of course, a lot of people go tasting in their 30s as well as in their 40s, but 50 to 65 seems to be the lion's share of the traveling wine consumer. So a lot of people would do day trips up to Santa Barbara wine country, down to Willamette Valley. But at the end of the day, 50 to 65 is definitely that age group that is more of the wine traveler, not the day tripper, but the traveler. They're all usually highly educated, meaning college or professional on up, masters, PhDs. When you sit down with a lot of them, you hear stories about how they were a lawyer or owned a law firm or a doctor, so they're highly educated as a group overall. They're very social and adventurous. I don't know about you guys. You ever been in a tasting room and you sat down and you're within close proximity of other people? You always can start talking to someone else, especially if they put you on a communal table, like one of the little family tables that we used to promote in the wineries, because people would talk to each other quite a bit. I know Allan sees this in his business, that when people get close to each other in these kind of lifestyle situations, they're just naturally adventurous and social people. A lot of them are empty nesters and a lot of them are couples. Again, you go to a tasting room, other than the day trippers where, a bunch of women will get together and say, hey, let's go up there. A bunch of guys will go to some winery or have cigars somewhere. Largely the traveler wine consumer is a couple, usually a girlfriend, boyfriend, or something they're married or something like that. Discretionary income, absolutely. They need discretionary income to do some of these events, especially in some of the places. Well, at the end of the day, wine country is still not an inexpensive trip. You want to do it right. It's not expensive in some rights. You could do it well, but you could also do it at a super high level. So you need some level of discretionary income. They love to indulge. We all know that wine, though it feels like a necessity in my bloodstreams many days, it is not a necessity. It's a nice to have. It's a luxury. Luxury is something that begins when necessity ends, right? And so you don't need to have wine. You don't need to go to these beautiful places. You don't need to travel to Napa, but they do because they love to indulge in the finest things in life. And this is a really cool thing. They return to great relationships and places. Now, this includes travel agents. This includes people that help them book, hotels, restaurants, wineries. Very rarely will they bounce around to new places. When they come back to the wine country, we notice they always come back to the places they have the greatest experience with the best people. So go ahead, Beth. So it is a very definable group. And I'm sure as I'm defining this, many of you out there have clients, a lot of clients that are basically mimic that list. Now, this is where it might deter a little bit. I like to put them in 3 categories because to me, this helps manage where they go, helps you curate an experience for them because there are different groups of those people. To me, there's 3. First, it's the wine aficionado. We all know this person, right? Sit down, smartest person on wine on the planet. They're super into it. They're ready to tell you about it. Their new find, the new bottle. Oh, I know that winemaker. I've been to that place. And we love those kind of people. Sometimes they really know what they're talking about and sometimes they don't, but who cares? They're all into it and that's totally cool, right? Not everybody has to be a musician to talk music, right? And be in love with it. So that's definitely one category where they want a little bit more of a cork dork, we call it, or geeky wine experience. The next one is a gastro enthusiast. That's why a lot of wineries, especially in the regions of Washington, Oregon, Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo area, offer a lot of food in their wineries, because food and wine go together. But secondly, there's a lot of people that love wine or absolutely into food. Just walk into your favorite restaurant. Wine is typically the number one alcohol that's served. And the third one is casual. There's a lot of people that come to wine country that don't need to be geeky, don't need to be into the food, but they'll like it. They'll geek out a little bit, but they just love being there. They just want to get away from their job for a week. And what a better place to come than Sonoma and sit there and look over the valley at the balloons going up. So that is basically the wine consumer in a nutshell. So you can go on to the next slide. Allan, you taking this one?
Yeah, this is mine.
Great.
So, and you know, one of the things, just to wrap up what Eric was saying there, is that we find that the wine traveler is often a similar type of individual to people who use travel agencies too. So, you know, they tend to be older and wealthier. They want to be treated specially, and they want to have unique experiences. So those are often people that are going to agents as well. So it's a good tie-in between the two. When we're talking about how to arrange a wine tourism visits, we've organized this into three different sort of avenues. The first and the most basic are people that organize their own trip, right? And we all know that anybody can go to Napa or Sonoma and show up and drive down and go into a winery and get a tasting. It doesn't take any special booking or advanced reservation whatsoever. That's not as true outside the US. There are definitely wine regions where you cannot just show up to wineries. Having said that, you can show up to some places that aren't expecting you and have a very good experience, but it's hard to base a vacation on that. You can also visit a winery with the reservation. So you can go on to many websites of wineries in the United States, and you can actually book in advance online a specific tasting or tour there. Many times that gives you better experiences than if you just show up. And again, it's a relatively good tactic in the United States to do that. In foreign countries, it's much harder to do that again. Not only are they potentially not offering those, but they might not have that available on their websites for consumers or agents to book as well.
And it's typically a much more expensive experience. We used to charge a premium for the reservations because we're offering a little bit more of a comprehensive experience. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And in Napa Valley now, they're starting over $100 per person. It's getting very expensive for some of the winery without reservations. I mean, with reservations, sorry.
And another problem with doing the self-organized vacation, if you actually are trying to work it into a whole vacation and not just say a morning or one day, is that it takes an awful lot of work to figure out where you should go and what the time is going to take to get from one place to the other and how long each experience will last. For you, the travel professional, it's not clear that you're going to get commissions for many of those experiences anyway. Certainly not if your clients are just going to the area and driving down the street and stopping into the wineries. Another way to do this is to use local wine tour operators. There are hundreds of local wine tour operators. And if you go to our website, if you type in Wine Marketing and Tourism Conference and click on the About page and scan down that, you'll see a list of our industry databases, including a list of wine tour companies around the world. I would definitely recommend that for you to refer your clients on when you have people who are going to be in a wine region and want to have a great experience, but are not looking to do a multi-day vacation. Those wine tour operators are usually locals. They're usually experts, or at least much more expert than your average visitor is, and they can give excellent experiences. They also eliminate the driving, which is a positive. So that's all a good opportunity for you to use when you're serving your clients. Will you get a commission from that? It's uncertain. The bigger ones are probably used to that. Smaller ones are probably not. If you call them up, it's possible they would pay a commission. If you are just trying to book it online, you definitely won't get one. So that is a limitation. And then we've got vacation tour operators. That's what we do. We provide the entire thing for an extended period of time. 5-day tours in the US is relatively common, a week in Europe, a little bit longer when we're going to other places around the world. This is for people who really obviously want to focus on their wine tourism. We include other experiences. Other companies like ours include other experiences, but the wine's a big part of it. On our active tours with Zephyr Adventures, obviously the activity is a big part of it too. The benefit of this to you as the agent is threefold. It saves you a heck of a lot of time. We've already done the research. We've already put together the vacation. We've balanced in other activities, the wine tastings, relaxation time, minimized the travel in between, picked out the best regions and the best wineries. Number two, it provides you good inside access. We've always got local guides on our tours. We've been there. We can usually get experiences that a regular visitor cannot. And number three, the prices and thus the commissions to you are higher. We package everything together. We obviously have to provide a higher price for us providing our guides and the local transportation and the whole thing. And because of that, you get a commission on that higher price, and it's a one packaged deal for you. So it's very easy, and we think is a nice way for you to go when serving clients that are interested in wine vacations. So we're going to switch over and actually talk about a few of those wine locations. Eric's going to take the domestic ones now, and then I'll do the international ones.
Oh, great. So I love this map because I think I've been to every corner of every one of these little appellations. And what you got here is a map of California. And it, extends all the way from the top to the bottom, meaning Mendocino on the top, all the way down through Napa and Sonoma over that little red, underneath that red, arrow there, all the way through the Central Coast, which is Monterey, San Luis Obispo, all the way down to Santa Barbara County. So let's talk a little bit about Northern California. So these are some beautiful pictures of Northern California. Now, primarily the two areas you want to go in Northern California are, of course, Napa and Sonoma. So we got a couple fun pictures here. You can see that the vineyards are absolutely beautiful. Some of the wineries are up over the top and crazy. Some of them are mom and pop. Some of them are little crickety places. Some of them look like castles. And that's the beauty of Northern California, especially sitting on the doorstep of San Francisco, which is the .com generation. You can go ahead and go through these up to Sonoma. So beautiful places, beautiful vineyards, beautiful landscape. And the one great thing about Napa, and then Sonoma next, but let me talk a little bit about Napa. Napa these are two valleys of different tales. I mean, it really depends on the kind of experience you want to offer your guest, your client. So Napa is going to be more pomp and circumstance. It's going to be a little snootier. Not every place is that way, but a little bit more. The restaurants are going to be a little bit more white tablecloth, and it's a tremendous experience. It's going to be a little bit more expensive as well because the wineries are just a little bit more over the top. Truth be told, you don't get into the wine industry unless you have a lot of money or you were born into it. So most people that build wineries in Napa Valley had money from a long time ago or some other industry, and they come in and they make a statement. It's $20 million, 30. I manage some of them. So when they offer an experience, they're not inexpensive experiences, most of them. Now, I did work in tasting rooms like, Behringer and Mumm that had a much little bit of, an easier entry into Napa Valley. But at the end of the day, Napa Valley is a smaller region with a kind of an over-the-top luxury experience, which makes it one of the greatest wine regions on the planet. So go ahead on to Sonoma. Now, Sonoma was my home for many, many years. And Sonoma is a much larger region. It's all hard to see on this map, but you can kind of see that orange spot is a much larger region than Napa. And for that reason, you're going to have a much more of a diverse experience. There's going to be a lot more smaller wineries. There's going to be more winding roads between the wineries. And but you could still get that same luxury experience. Back in the day, Sonoma was in the shadow of Napa, wasn't considered super luxury. It was kind of like, the kind of more of the growers, the grape growers built wineries there. Well, those days changed 20, 30 years ago with Kendall Jackson moving in and really changing the face. And some of the greatest wines in the world, you probably know, come out of this area. Russian River Pinots, Sonoma Coast Pinot Noirs, Alexander Valley Cabernets. The list is massive. It's long because the region is one of my favorites for the reason that you can go to one of these big over-the-top wineries, but you can also have that comfortable little winery experience boutique. You can go cult and you can go big winery. The restaurants here today, to me, are as good, if not better, than Napa Valley as well. You're just going to get more of a country feel out of Sonoma. So those are the two areas that I love absolutely the most because I know the most about them. That's where I worked most of my career. But you know what California has? A lot of other regions that are super friendly, a lot actually friendlier to go than Sonoma and Napa. Now, booking tours with someone who's never been to wine country, I probably recommend Sonoma and Napa because when you want to eat potato chips, you're going to go to Lay's Potatoes. You're going to eat potato chips, right? But then after you eat potato chips for a little while, you want to go off to the other regions, go kettle chips, try a couple other things. And what I love about these other regions and what we have an arrow pointed at here is Central Coast, which comprises Santa Cruz, Monterey, Santa Luis Obispo, and Santa Barbara, which we're going to talk about here in the middle. This was a wine region in the shadow of Sonoma, Napa, and Mendocino, and now it no longer is. It holds its own, but they don't have the regulations that Sonoma and Napa do. Napa and Sonoma grew up in a place where you couldn't really offer a lot of food at the wineries. They wanted people to go to the restaurants. You couldn't offer like weddings or big parties, where in this region, you're going to get a little bit more of that, but the wineries are just as spectacular and the wine is just as good. You can see the wineries in the wine region looks very similar to Sonoma and Napa. But if you ever go to Paso Robles is a little bit of a warmer region, very, very good at Cabernet and Zinfandel. But it's in the middle of the state, and you can see the rolling hills. That actually goes out to the ocean there. That's what's beautiful about these places. Everything has an ocean influence, but the warmth of the California sun. But you can see that they have more space to do more interesting things here, love seats and fire pits. So you'll have a little bit of a different experience in these regions where you'll get more specialized wines. In Sonoma and Napa, we make everything fantastically well. And in Paso, they do a lot of things well, but mostly they'll be with like Cabernet or higher in Zinfandels, Syrahs, those kind of things. And then there are other regions around Paso as well. There's San Luis Obispo, there's Edna. So in that area, there's just a ton of places to go that's super country, very Mediterranean, Tuscan-esque, if you will, in some degree, without the stone castles. Go ahead to the next region, please. So the next one is, Santa Barbara. Let me address that separately because that's very far south of Sierra Foothills. Santa Barbara to me is awesome. That's come along. Now, if you have some super luxury kind of clients, super high-end clients who just want that super, super luxury experience, well, Santa Barbara, the city, is as cool as it gets. I mean, it is a beautiful hamlet. As you guys know, Montecito, where Ellen DeGeneres lives and Oprah live up on the coast. That's right south of Santa Barbara. So people can go to the city of Santa Barbara and in the wine country, which is Santa Ynez Valley, which is right above it. Los Olivos, I mean, all these beautiful little towns, but it's a very luxury area. So Santa Barbara is excellent at Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, as well as a bunch of other things, but it's a little cooler. The ocean area just feeds into that region a little bit more. It's going to be a little cooler, so the wine's going to be a little less of the high area, the bigger wines like in Paso where it's warmer. But at Sierra Foothills, this is completely new in really a lot of people. This is on the foothills of Sierra, Tahoe and all those big, beautiful mountainous areas that California is known for. There's a whole wine region. Again, it's a little warmer, a little less, no ocean influence, maybe influenced by rivers. So back in the day, many, many years ago, they found that things like Petite Syrahs, Zinfandels, big wines, big extracted, when you talk to someone and they got all the purple in their mouth, Alan, when you're talking to them and it just looks like they have a hole there, that's because they probably were drinking a Sierra Nevada, a Sierra wine, or like the El Dorado Hills, because it's just a beautiful region of, again, you're allowed to have bigger parties, weddings. It's a lot easier to deal with. But at the end of the day, Sonoma and Napa is still the king and the queen. They are the monarchy of California, but the rest of these regions are absolutely fantastic, and they've come a tremendous long way. I've been in the industry 20 years, and I remember that things like, Paso Robles at the time wasn't really that big. Now it's a luxury town with some of the best restaurants in all of California. So you can have at all of California, which is beautiful. I think that's a great thing. So go on to the next one, please. And as you could tell, that I've made most of my life and my career in California, so I will talk most lovingly about that. But who could not love Oregon, especially the Willamette Valley? So Oregon, as you know, sits above California. I like how I say that, right? I look up because I'm in California. And you got Oregon and Washington above us. And boy, did Oregon come out of nowhere in the world of wine. Now, Oregon established itself not so much years ago on its visitation, right? It's very small wineries, not a lot going on there. But the Willamette Valley, which runs from Portland all the way down to Eugene, you got Salem in there, Dundee, established itself on a wine region that is one of the best in the world. They rival Burgundy in their style of Pinot Noir. Absolutely. You can see it's more mountainous, more trees, but it mimics Burgundy a little bit, so much so that a very famous family from Burgundy called the Drouin family came and built a winery in this region and established it right away. They are the royalty of Burgundy. So they came in, established a winery, started making high-end Pinot Noirs, and of course they can make amazing Pinot Gris here. But again, going back to that California story, that the wineries now have grown up. A lot of wealthy people have moved into this area and built vanity wineries, which, by the way, is awesome because it benefits us. I love vanity wineries because they have the view and they have the statue and they have the deck. A lot of wineries in Oregon now, though you could still go to the mom and pop ones that originated. If you have people that love that, you can go from 1 minute to the mom and pop to the next minute to the Domaine Drouins of the world that are just fantastically huge. And the wine is as good as anything that you will find, not in California, in the world. Absolutely. So I'm a huge fan of Oregon. It's a little bit of the second thought to California. To me, it should be sometimes the first 1.2 thought right after Sonoma and Napa, candidly. You go to Oregon, it's a fantastic experience. The next wine region, which is smaller, though it's a much larger region, funny, smaller but larger. It's Columbia Valley, which is Washington. Now, a lot of people go to Seattle. Stay on this slide for a second. Seattle's where it says Puget Sound up in that region, of course. The Puget Sound wine region it's a very cold area. You've been to Seattle, right? Rains a lot. It's very cold. So the grape region there is not huge. Not a lot of wineries. There are a lot of wine tasting rooms right outside of Seattle in Woodinville. It's hard to kind of curate a beautiful experience with them. You can. I don't want to put that down. You can. But it's more tasting rooms where the grapes are typically grown for the things that people know, Cabernet, Syrahs, the Merlots, a much warmer and a very dry region, which is kind of funny to think. It's super dry out in the Columbia Valley. And most of that goes all the way down to the border there in Oregon. And you can see the Rattlesnake Hills, Red Mountain, Walla Walla, the beautiful little town of Walla Walla. You can curate a phenomenal wine experience in that area. Now, it's much different than Oregon. It's a little cooler in the Willamette Valley. Here, it's super warm, super dry. So they're going to mimic more of like a Bordeaux region that's going to be drier, higher end cabs, Merlots, Syrahs, more Rhone-like experience, Grenache. And again, not as many wineries in terms of density in some of the regions of California, but you could do a phenomenal experience. An absolutely amazing experience in these areas because of the wineries now have been built up. Some out of town wineries like California wineries have come on and established a Washington brand. So it's going to be more of a rustic, beautiful experience, as you can see from this, more mountainous, but I mean, all top level wines that you would absolutely love to have. So that is the West Coast Wine 101 within hopefully 5 minutes. And I love these pictures here. You can kind of see, while Alan's taking himself off mute there, you can see the valley out here. This is Columbia Valley. You can see how the air would come through this, but the warmth would stay in. Got a little river that meanders through the middle there to keep things a little bit temperate. So they have 700 wineries in Oregon, and that I could believe. Absolutely.
One of the interesting things now is that we have wineries in every single state in the United States, right? And you can do that. You can go to those wineries and visit. But in terms of wine tourism, Oregon, Washington, and California are clearly the places most wine travelers want to go. We have a tour. We have a package tour via Tastifications in Sonoma, and another one that combines the Walla Walla area in Washington with the Willamette Valley in Oregon. So I'm going to now talk about the international areas, and there are just hundreds of international wine regions. We cannot cover them all. So I've picked out a small number of them to talk about. All of these, not by coincidence, we run tours to, and that's in part because we picked what we think are some of the best wine regions in the world, and in part because these are the ones I know the best, even though I've been to many others as well. Partly, some of these are very popular, like Bordeaux. Other ones are a little bit less popular. So Bordeaux, France is in competition with Napa for being the #1 wine region in the world, and also for being the #1 wine tourism region in the world. And we all know France is a major tourism destination, and Bordeaux is the major wine region in France.
By the way, Alan, if you ask the Bordelais if they're in competition, they would say absolutely not. Absolutely not. I've worked for a French company for a long time. Absolutely not. No.
Yes, exactly. But it's interesting if you ask our Italian guide who has better wine.
Oh, yeah.
You've got a lot of competition.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
One of the good things for wine tourism about the Bordeaux region is that you can fly into and stay in the city of Bordeaux. So in terms of tourism, it makes it quite easy. Bordeaux is a major international airport. Not so easy to fly direct from the United States, but with a one hop, it's a very nice airport to fly into. In that region, there are lots of small little village, Saint-Emilion, and many others on the east and west bank of the river that runs through there. It's hard for you to come up with an exact plan for what to do unless you know the area. Obviously, there are local wine tours operators there, and that's one way to do it. It is a well-developed wine region. France has not been, the United States is leading the world in wine tourism, no question whatsoever. The wineries in the United States are leading the world in terms of that. France is catching up, and they clearly know that it's a big business, and they are investing lots of dollars and lots of time. And so you can generally drive around and stop into the wineries and have experiences there without any advanced planning. In France, of course, there are many other wine regions, and some of them are very popular, like the Chardonnay region, like Provence, the Rhone Valley. But Bordeaux is the #1 place, and if you have someone saying, I want to go to France for a wine visit, you can't really go too wrong with Bordeaux. Moving on to Tuscany in Italy. Italy is obviously in competition with France for the best place to visit in Europe in terms of tourism, and also perhaps the most well-known for wine in Europe. And like France, there are many places that produce wine there. Our active tour company, Zephyr Adventures, has tours all over Italy, in Puglia, in Sicily, up north in the Dolomites, in the Umbria and Tuscany regions. But for our wine tours with Taste Vacations, we focus on Tuscany. It is the most well-known region for tourism. It is the most established region for wine tourism. And so that makes it relatively easier and also more sought after by American tourists, especially when they're thinking about Italy travel. You can fly into Florence, which is a major city in Italy, and get to the region by car. Or you can also take a train or drive up north from Rome. Rome is the major airport with more major flights, obviously, directly from the US, whereas Florence, it's hard to fly directly from the US for those of you here in the United States. When you get into the Tuscany region, we really like Siena as a city to be based. It's a relatively large city with lots of hotels and restaurants and services. It's also right in the middle of the wine region. The wine region tends to be separated, with Siena as sort of the dividing line, north and south of Siena. So north of Siena, you have Chianti, and south you have the Val d'Orcia, which is very different. Siena is well developed. The Chianti area is well developed, and it's pretty easy to drop into many of the wineries there. Much different in the south In the south, you have names like Montalcino and Montepulciano. Those are the towns, and they're quite prepared for tourists. But when you get out into the region, it's not so easy just to drive around and stop into wineries. I've done that. And when I'm with my Italian guide, we stop in and then we have to go knock on the farmhouse and pull the winemaker out, and he'll come and give us a tasting or talk to us. But that's not easy to do if you're an average tourist. Moving on to a third one in in Europe, Rioja, Spain. Again, Spain has many different wine regions. Rioja is probably the most famous, but despite that, it gets relatively few American visitors. When we are there, I'm always shocked at how few Americans I see. And it's one of the positives from our point of view. It's nice to go to Rioja and feel like you're sort of being a groundbreaker. Bilbao, which is a Basque city, is an easy city to fly into and not too far out, less than 2 hours from Bilbao down into the wine region. And you've got towns like Haro, H-A-R-O, and LaGuardia, which are both nice small towns with enough hotels and services to be able to base for your time when you're in Rioja. Rioja is interesting in terms of its wineries. It has these huge, showy, expensive wineries that are on a grand artistic scale. And those are generally open to the public. You can just drop in. That's what they're built for. And then you have the vast majority of the other wineries, which are the exact opposite. They're small. They're not built for tourism. They're just producing the wines. And you really would want to have a mix of both of those when you go to Rioja in Spain. So moving out of Europe for a second, although I think I come back to it at the end, Chile and Argentina is a fantastic region for wine tourism. You can see there that there's again a lot of different regions. That map's a little small, but you can see all those different lines on the left, which all point to the Chilean regions, which nicely are all centered within a short drive of the capital, Santiago. So in terms of arranging wine tourism, Chile is pretty easy. You can fly right into Santiago. You can drive out. One of the main wine towns is called Santa Cruz. And you can visit various different wineries. Some of them are open to tourism on a drop-in basis. And so for someone who's an adventurous traveler and an independent traveler, Chile can be done. Having said that, it's not super easy. And for your average traveler, I think they're going to be intimidated by it. Just the idea of renting a car at the airport and figuring out how to get around and driving down, getting to Santa Cruz, which can be a little rough around the edges at time if you don't know where you're going. It's the kind of place that is amazing, but I think is better off with a guide. Argentina is even more spread out and with much bigger distances, but the main center of the wine world in Argentina is centered on the city of Mendoza. And Mendoza is a big city, more on the order of Santiago than a cute little wine town like Santa Cruz in Chile. But it is the main city nevertheless. They've got some nice hotels that are right downtown. They have a ton of services and restaurants and things like that. The key there is to figure out what to do when you get to Mendoza, because the wine region is big and spread out, and you can drive easily more than an hour to get to some of the regions in the Mendoza area. Again, they have some big wineries that are very showy and open to tourists on drop-in basis, and many others are not. But it's the combination. What we do on our tour is do a combination of Chile, Argentina, fly into Santiago, fly out of Mendoza, and we take care of people the whole time. It's really fantastic. It's a region that is high in people's popularity list for places they want to go in the wine world. Another one that's way up there that is not that visited by your average tourist is South Africa. And South Africa has excellent wine, a fantastic wine region. It's not that known to your average wine consumer, which makes it somewhat appealing. The big wine region is in the Cape region, which is centered around Cape Town on the southern coast. And the wine village there is a wine small city, really, which is called Stellenbosch. Stellenbosch is a nice town. It's a university town, and there are lots of wineries in that region. Again, some of the wineries are open to tourism on a drop-in basis. Many others are not. I think that the real benefit of South Africa is that you can combine wine tourism with a broader vacation. And specifically, the country of South Africa is amazing and even inspirational, given that it's one of the few places in the world where we've had a peaceful transfer of power from one group to another group, which, as we all heard in the news just yesterday, is not easy to do when you think about what happened in Myanmar. In South Africa, it works, and they did have a peaceful transfer of power, and they have difficulties there, no question, but it's a really motivational place to visit and to learn about. In addition, you can add in a safari. And so what we do is we have a wine and safari vacation that is just an amazing combination, because really safaris are, I'm sure I'm talking to the crowd that knows about safaris, they can be the most amazing things. And I'm a pretty jaded traveler, and I thought that when I did my very first safari, I was shocked at how great an experience I had. I would say that South Africa is not really recommended for independent travel. That's how I did it the first time I went. It's doable, but even I was a little hesitant at first, just renting a car and driving around the countryside. It's fine once you do it, but most tourists are not going to want to travel around in that way. So it's a perfect location for you to be helping people with. And finally, the last location that we want to feature for our international locations is Portugal. And they have a number of different wine regions, including the Vinho Verde and the Douro in the north, which are the two regions we visit. Part of the problem with Portugal is it's spread out. Part of the problem is it's not quite clear where to base from. We base from the city of Porto for the most of it, although we do move around a little bit. Portugal has everything you want. It has beauty, it has the sea, it has mountains, it has the wineries, but it's not that popular among tourists, and partly because it's not that easy to navigate. So again, for those of you who have customers who have traveled already to wine regions, looking at places like Portugal, South Africa, or Chile and Argentina are excellent sort of second places to visit after they've already done Napa and Sonoma and potentially Bordeaux in Italy. So that's a brief summary. And again, we run tours in all those locations, but we also want to talk about a special offering that we have, which are wine and music retreats that Eric and his wife Mindy and we have cooperated on. So I'm going to pass it back to Eric and let him quickly talk about those.
Sure. Well, thank you. And been a lot of those places that you just showed as well. And my goodness, I wish I was in a lot of them right now. So, one question I get quite often, if, we have a lot of really great people from all over the world here, is when they meet my wife, Mindy Bear, they say, all right, so how did you hook up with her? Because she's the true rock star and the talent and the beauty and everything else of our relationship. Excuse me. And she's considered one of the greatest jazz and blues musicians in the world, and saxophone and singing. So if some of you out there might know Mindy, if not, please look her up online. She's had a career that spans many, many years now, and many albums, a lot of top Billboard hits, mostly in jazz, and also a bunch of years in blues. She's played with Aerosmith and Duran Duran. She was on American Idol as one of the band members for many years. She's been on stage with just some of the greatest legends of all time. And so she is fantastic. But the one thing she also is a party in a box. I mean, you wind her up and she is built for just being around people, loving wine, and loving being in situations where she's hosting people. She's absolutely at the highest level, one of the most entertaining people I've ever been around. And so what we decided to do is we have this very large following of people that love wine. And, we have our own little wine company called reservetastings.com. And basically it pairs wine and music. So every wine that we come out with has some kind of music theme on it. This is a Chardonnay that my daughter created, this beautiful label that looks like a saxophone. And so we decided to start putting on adventures around the world. So we love to do this. So why not invite a whole bunch of people along with us? Now, small groups, anywhere between 30 to 40 some odd people, going to regions where the wine is fantastic. And so for our first year, the plan is every year we're going to have one in the US and one outside the country and somewhere in Awesome. So the first year is going to be in Healdsburg in Sonoma. Now, the reason we did it in Healdsburg, Allan, is because I spent many, many years raising my daughters in this little town. So I know everybody. I would say almost know everybody from the supermarket to the winery. I have a ton of friends that know a ton of friends, and it's all such a small little community, but it is one of the most luxury places in the world. And someone just commented on the wine behind me. Yes, this is just the small stockpile that I have behind me for our little wine company right there, right? There's always wine around our house. How else do you marry a musician, right? But the Healdsburg is amazing. It's got 30 restaurants within a few blocks. It's got some of the greatest wine regions. But what's really great about it is the wine regions are all on the doorstep of this little town. So you can keep coming back to this town. You go to Zinfandel and Dry Creek. You go to Russian River Pinots. You can go to Alexander Valley Cabernets, and they're best wines in the world. And some of the greatest wineries in the world are in around this area, like Jordan Winery, McCrosty, which is this brand new Pinot Noir house in Russian River. So through my contacts, we are absolutely going to be putting together an unbelievable experience. Even better than some tour operators. Now I have a little bias because I used to manage these wineries, so I can actually, I think, curate this a little bit closer, though they get to places that I can as well. But what I love about our experience is that it's very personal, and every day Mindy's going to perform for your guests. So a little impromptu concert at a winery. So imagine your guests at a winery sitting up on this hill in Russian River, and later on in the tasting, Mindy performs with a guest guitarist, with a guest singer. And I promise you, it's some of the best music in the world. And if you're interested in hearing Mindy, we have a show every Tuesday night on Facebook. It's a live show. It's completely free. So please visit us tonight. I'll put the little URL up. And the reason I want you to visit us, and some people already have, I put the link up in the comments. The reason why I'm asking you to visit us, so you could see the personality, the level of musicality that Mindy possesses with her guests. She has a guest tonight called Peter White. So that kind of experience is going to be offered. We're going to stay at H2 Hotel, which is one of the finest hotels in the middle of Healdsburg. That's a gentleman by the name of Dan right there with his dog. We're going to go to Down and Dirty restaurants, and on the right there, that's Single Thread, which is some of the highest end food you ever have in your life. It is, to me, rivals Tuscany in the level of experience, but you add music into it, you add my wife into it, and it becomes quite an experience other than just another wine travel and tour. Not for everybody, but if they love music, jump in with us. And if they love that, then the next experience we're going on with our partners here is Tuscany. So as Allan mentioned, Siena is like ground zero in Italy for awesomeness, because similar to Healdsburg, you got Chianti to the north, you got Montepulciano, Montalcino to the south, and you got this ancient city. Now it's big, but in respect to Florence and other places, it's not. It's manageable. And of course, we decided to stay in the coolest place in town, just this one awesome place. You can see one picture right there. It's a 5-star hotel, Grand Hotel Continental Siena. You cannot get more lavish luxury than this, but you step outside that doorstep and you're in on the left there in the middle of Siena. So, working with our travel partner here, once again, we're going to set up incredible days of just indulging in going to a pecorino farm and indulging in food at every point. And of course, in all the wineries, which there is never a winery in Italy that's a bad winery. It's just different levels. Chianti, what I love about Chianti region, Tuscan region, if you will, overall, Montepulciano, Montalcino, is that Sangiovese, the grape that's grown there, is excellent in all its forms, middle form, high-end form. And of course, we threw in a little bubbles because I used to manage champagne houses, and you got to throw a little bubbles in there to commemorate these experiences. So if you're interested in signing up for these, go to this website, please. Let me put up this website. If you're interested in having your guests go there, of course, contact our partners here, Alan and Beth. That link I just put up right there, you can sign up for a newsletter. You can see a lot more about the experiences. And also we have a newsletter where we email you once a month and just keep you updated on what's going on, highlight some things. I would say they're both over half sold out already. Mindy's got some incredible fans that follow her around the world. So we don't have that many spots left, Alan, but you know what I love about it is we do have a little bit left. They're small experience, they're luxury, they're fully curated by insiders. And I think this is going to be a tremendous year for us to go.
Yeah, most of what we do with Tastifications are private groups. This is not. This is a public group, so anybody can join. And we wanted to tell you about it because we did think that this would be something that potentially you will have clients interested in. Somebody asked, what do you think the likelihood of this happening this year is? I think it's pretty good. We haven't talked a lot about COVID and our safety precautions. We are extremely cautious in what we do. In fact, I would put us in the more cautious than 98% of other tour operators category. As Eric knows, we've talked about this a lot. The beautiful thing about the Sonoma trip is that it's in a time frame when it's really warm out. And so we can do most of our stuff outside, and we will be requiring everyone to get a negative COVID test or a vaccine in advance. So with our precautions and with that precaution, we think this is going to be able to run. A few of you are asking other questions about commissions and stuff. We're going to get into that right now. So Beth, go ahead and move us forward if you can. This is our website. Somebody asked previously, is there a website for wine tours? So I'm answering that question right now. This is our website, which lists our wine tours, the packaged vacations. There are many websites that talk about various different wine tours around the world. I'm not sure I have a good one for you for just listing everything, but this is ours. This is Tastifications. We do small group wine, beer, and food tours that are usually private, but we do have also public group tours every year. So you can go on our website and those are listed so that if you have clients who just don't have a group to travel with, or even groups can be as small as 4 sometimes, then they can go on those public tours. Our other companies are called Zephyr Adventures, and that's the URL there. So if you're interested, if you have people interested in active tours around the world, including to wine regions, that's the link. And then our third one is Travel Montana. And we will again be doing the same sort of a webinar on April 6th. And we'll let you know the details on that. That we are thinking is going to be really great for all of you. Montana became very popular during this pandemic. And it's really, truly one of the most amazing states for outdoor active travel in the entire country. I would consider it world class. And I've been all over the world doing active adventures. So that's our third brand. And Beth, go ahead and move it again. We just wanted to recap quickly. Why should you be interested in this? Wine travel is very popular. It's not easy to arrange on your own, especially outside the US. And it's not easy to organize the unique and special events. And for you all, packaged tours can be very profitable. Next slide, Beth. Beth, next slide, please. Might be happening. These are a few of our suggestions for all of you. You're the experts, so if this isn't how you do things, you can ignore us. Obviously, you might have customers that are asking about wine travel. That's great. Please keep us in mind if you do. You could email your database with wine tourism ideas, including the Mindy Hebert wine and music retreats, which are unique. And so they might actually appreciate being given ideas like wine travel or like what we're doing with the active travel and Montana travel. You know, we've had agents that approach private groups in your region and say, hey, can I take care of your business for travel? And this is a great one for private groups. And you could even, if you do this, consider hosting your own tour if you've got enough clients that want to travel with you then we can make it work so that you can actually come on a tour as a host and receive the commission. Here is an answer to some of you asking these questions. I see, yes, we pay a 10% commission on every booked guest, and that commission is on the entire package, not the components. So that's a big win. We easily could be charging $4,000 for an international tour. So one component is one commission, and that is $400 per individual, and that doesn't even include the airfare. We can handle the communication for you if you wish, or you can handle that communication. So we don't want to steal your customer, and we won't, but we do know that we are in the best position to sell what we do. And so if you have someone who says, yes, I'm interested in that wine and music retreat or that trip to Tuscany, then we're happy to take over the communication and book it. And then obviously you still get the commission. Also, if you are interested in this, I can do webinars for you similar to this. I could do webinars on wine travel, on Montana travel, or on active adventure travel. And that could be for a group of agents in your region or in your office, or clients if you have one. We have a webinar coming up on specialty travel for an investment fund that has a bunch of clients who are interested in this type of travel. So we're always happy to do that as well. And I think we're at the very end. And so I'm going to hop over and quickly look at the questions. If you cannot stay for the questions, on behalf of Eric and myself, thank you very much for taking the time to spend your 57 minutes with us. Eric?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Hopefully you learned a little something as well and enjoy wine even more so at home because of that. And please visit with us tonight at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time with our live show on Facebook.com/MindyAbear.
And so just quickly looking at the questions, will you receive a copy of the slides? Yes, you can receive a copy of the slides. Beth, who is doing all the work behind the scenes, thank you, Beth, we'll send that out. Do we do accommodation or just tours? So our tours are packaged tours. What we do is we provide meals, accommodation, ground transportation, guides, winery visits. So we do the whole thing. Very similar to other packaged vacations, like going to Club Med, for example, except for we're probably more packaged than they are. And generally, if we have a private group, that private group's staying together all the time. If we're doing a public group, like the wine and music retreats, our guides are trained to take care of the social dynamics of groups too. And so we're definitely working on making sure everyone has an amazing vacation. Can we work with Canadian travel agents? From our perspective, it's exactly the same. I've seen people in Bulgaria and Romania and other places around the world. That's great. We work with any agents anywhere, and it doesn't matter to us. We're happy to figure out a way to transfer your commission to wherever you are. And truthfully, we do that regularly anyway with our international clients for our conferences too. Let's see. Do we do custom winery tours? So really what we do are custom vacation tours. Yes, we can. So if you come to us, if somebody comes to you and says, we want to do a wine tour in France and we want to do it in Provence, come to us and we'll tell you what we can and can't do in a location like that. Oftentimes people want to do our location and then they want to adjust the schedule. If it's an easy adjustment, we want to go to this winery and not that one, that's no problem at all. If they start wanting to go to different regions or different cities, that affects the tour, and we can do that, but what we generally do is ask for a deposit in advance so that we're not putting together a tour and wasting, frankly, your time and our time with someone who doesn't decide to do this. Somebody asked, would the customer stay in a villa? On both these tours, the wine and music retreats, they're not staying in a villa, they're staying in that 5-star hotel that Eric mentioned on both of the tours.
By the way, that'd be the way Steven Tyler would travel. So that's what we're going to do. Mindy was on tour with Aerosmith, and he would only stay in villas. I mean, in luxury places. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to rock star it. You know.
Somebody asked a question about diversity. The wine industry is not that diverse, and the wine industry is going through the throes of dealing with that, and that's a good thing. When you visit wineries, the winemaker and the wine owner are normally white, and there's not a lot of diversity. When you go to the wineries and see who's visiting, it's often also a lot of white folks. Having said that, wineries are highly aware of this, working hard to be more friendly to diverse visitors. And I don't see that as any issue whatsoever for tourism. Our company and Eric's company are both very open to diversity. We have a diversity statement if you go to zephyrunited.com on the bottom of our website, and we take it very seriously. Do you offer wine tours to Croatia? We actually, Zephyr Adventures has a multi-sport tour in Croatia. It's not a wine tour yet. Is the rate the same for a private tour versus a regular group tour? Yes, depending on the number of people. Some of our tours, we have to charge more if the group is very small, like 4 people. But if it's a little bit bigger, around 8, then generally it's the same. Can we do disabled groups? Somebody asked. It depends on where we're going. In general, the answer is yes. Wineries are pretty good dealing with it, certainly in the United States, but even in other countries, I'd say that wineries are ahead of that because they are visitor experiences. And so, yes, and we can book the transportation for that as well. So if we had a group like that, that would be not a problem. So I think we've covered all of the questions. If you have any, you can email us directly. My email address is Allan, ALLAN, at Zephyr United, ZEPHYR, United.com. And we would love to hear from you. Let us know what issues you have, what interests you have, and we'll be happy to have a conversation. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you to my friend Eric for participating. Thank you for Beth for setting this up. We're a little bit 3 minutes over our expected maximum of 60, not too bad. So everyone have a great day.